Right now, it is my great pleasure to welcome a close friend of Bob Hawke and one of the giants of independent filmmaking. Please welcome Mr. Kevin Smith.
That giant thing is a fat joke, I assure you. Thanks for being here this morning, ladies and gentlemen. This movie is perfect for Outfest because this is a film about a life spent in film, as well as a life spent being just gay as fuck. So you're gonna enjoy the hell out of this movie. I go way back with the subject of the film, as you'll see in the flick itself. Bob Hawke discovered Clerks. Without Bob Hawke, I wouldn't be standing here. I probably wouldn't have even ever driven by this building because I wouldn't be in Los Angeles. None of the things that have happened over the 22 years since we made Clerks would have happened if Bob hadn't been in the audience that day. Ironically, it was a Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. Same thing, man. So as I was driving over here, my wife's like, "Where'd you go?" And I was like, "I'm going to the DGA to intro Bob's movie." And she's like, "So early?" And I remembered, I wrote back, I was like, he did it for me once 22 years ago. Woke up very early and changed my life. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Before I hand you over to the good folks that made the movie, man, JJ and Ty, who I owe a life debt to because this is a movie I should have made. This man was my hero, changed my world and stuff. I should have made this documentary. I'm almost glad that they did it because they unabashedly put my interview where I'm bawling into the movie and stuff. Had I been the director, I would have left that out and stuff. So I'm glad they got to do it. And the film honors somebody who not just changed my life professionally, and Bob absolutely did that. Nobody ever would have heard of Clerks or me if he hadn't been at that screening at 11 o'clock on October 3rd on a Sunday morning. Bob changed my life personally as well. I've always liked to think of myself as a friend of the gay community and stuff. I was raised in a town where nobody was progressive. Not to paint them as all like hicks or something like that, but I grew up in the 70s and the 80s and started working making Clerks in the early 90s. It was in a period before there was mass acceptance and whatnot. Gay was still the other to a lot of people in my world. My brother wound up being gay and stuff, so that was very helpful in as much as keeping me more enlightened than most of my compatriots, and I don't want to paint them as Cro-Magnons. We just didn't have gay people in our world as far as we knew. So I meet Bob, and Bob sees Clerks and starts talking it up. We go to Sundance. Bob and I become very good friends, and at one point, you'll see in the documentary, Bob comes to live with me pretty early in my career. So at a certain point into my very straight world, full of friends who were just like, ew, that's gay, still using it as a negative, as a descriptor and stuff, entered this 50-plus-year-old gay man who I was suddenly like, I'm living with him. And it was like a bizarre Three's Company for all my friends all of a sudden. But what I love about that, when I was thinking about it on the drive over, was Bob was the guy he was the ambassador into my world. I couldn't tell my friends, oh my God, you gotta like gay people, they're no different than us. I grew up fat, so there was this kind of idea of being ostracized for something that you just liked doing. Always, I had a sympathetic factor for it. I had a lot of thin friends, so that thing didn't exist for them. So I couldn't sit there and be like, you all gotta love gay people and shut like I do. Bob was the guy that made them love gay people. He was the first gay person that entered their world, and he was delightful. He wasn't the other anymore. He was their friend. He was oh my God, he's hysterical. Oh my God, he loves movies. Oh my God, he loves talking about dick. But it opened up a world for my friends. I'm never uncomfortable around my friends anymore. There are times, and again, I don't want to paint them as sheet-wearing folks or anything, but there were times when I was young where, it's like, oh man, you just wish your friends thought like you do, maybe were a little more enlightened, a little more accepting like you were or something like that. I would have been quiet about it my whole life, probably. Not brave enough to step up and be like, hey man, why don't you consider this kind of thing? I was a product of my environment, so I just would have sat there quietly. Thanks to Bob, I never had to. Thanks to Bob, I had an example for all my friends to look at and be like, oh man, it's not that's not what I thought being gay was at all. This guy's badass and shit like that. We now live in a world that's very much, in my world, I can't speak for everybody, but Los Angeles as well, very much more accepting than when Bob moved into my house in the 90s. And when I say the world, I mean my friends and stuff. Like Jason Mewes used to fucking talk about gay people as mysterious Martians from another world. Now I'm pretty sure he's bi-curious at his age. So that had everything to do with this man and this individual you're about to watch the movie. It's one thing for him to come into my life and give me a career. I'll always be thankful for that, because I probably still would have been working in that fucking convenience store. But what he did for me personally was so much more, and something I never probably would have or could have done for myself, man. He expanded the horizons of everybody around me and made suddenly that other wasn't an other, it was one of us. So anyway, without further ado, I'm gonna give it back to Alonzo, and he's gonna do the official introduction to JJ and Ty, two wonderful filmmakers who have the tenacity, temerity, and just courage to step up and be like, this guy deserves to have he deserves to have a lens focused on him. And they did it, and it's quite beautiful. This is one of my favorite people in the world, ladies and gentlemen, who you're about to watch tonight. It is an honor to be standing in the DGA to introduce a movie about a guy who helped so many other people launch their ships and tell stories, including the two filmmakers you're about to meet. I give you back to Alonzo.
Please welcome the directors of Filmhog, JJ Garbine and Ty Parquet.